Former President Trump is working to influence another election. Even as a judge rules, he could be sued over his role in the January 6th riot. Mr. Trump has endorsed candidates for secretaries of state in places where he received no help in overturning the 2020 election. In Michigan, he's backing community college professor Christina Caramo, who has peddled conspiracy theories about the election result. But whoever wins the Republican nomination in April will still have to face Michigan's incumbent Secretary of State, Democrat Jocelyn Benson. The secretary joins us now. Secretary Benson, welcome. I want to start with your recent interview with the Washington Post. You said putting people in charge of elections who endorsed Mr. Trump's claims of fraud in 2020 would be, quote, akin to putting an arsonist in charge of a fire department. What do you think could happen if a Trump-backed candidate wins the Secretary of State election in one of several swing states he sought to overturn?
Well, first, thanks for having me and covering this important topic. And I mean, we don't need to look much further than Georgia to see what could have happened. Imagine if a presidential candidate called a Secretary of State and said, find me 1,600 more votes, and they said yes. Imagine a Secretary of State who would fail or refuse to certify a valid, accurate election simply because they disagree with the results. That's the type of really un-American, anti-democracy shenanigans that could occur to thwart the will of the people. And if you have a Secretary of State willing to do the job of a candidate for president as opposed to protect the will of the people.
Secretary, as you know, Mr. Trump won the state of Michigan in 2016. President Biden flipped it back in 2020 by more than 150,000 votes. But there's a trend of the president's party not doing as well in midterm elections. What do you think are some of the obstacles you will face in your next election?
You know, I think voters will have a clear choice in nearly every election on the ballot in every state this year, and that is whether or not they want to support candidates on either side of the aisle who have supported democracy and reject those who have promoted conspiracy theories, lies, all with an eye towards overturning a valid presidential election. Indeed, democracy is on the ballot this fall, and voters have an opportunity once and for all to reject all of the un-American activities we've seen over these past few years seeking to undermine democracy and instead support individuals of integrity who are committed to protecting their voice and their vote.
What other issues are you putting front and center?
Again, I think democracy is front and center because every other issue stems from that, whether it's education, whether it's access to clean water, protecting the environment, or ensuring we have a strong and robust economy. Our ability to ensure our elected officials represent us and our power as citizens to hold our elected officials accountable all comes down to whether we are able to vote and we have a democracy that reflects the will of the people. And then the challenge really this fall will be communicating that very clear choice to voters that every other issue roots back to who will be overseeing our elections in future election cycles. And that is a choice that is serious consequences for the future of our country, and that every voter will need to be fully informed and engaged on if we're going to overcome this challenging moment.
And Secretary, before we let you go, you've requested an investigation into reports that a third party gained unauthorized access to voting machines in your state. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, in Michigan, it is illegal to hand over election machines or other technology to unauthorized third parties. And we've received reports that individuals, third parties, have been pressuring perhaps election administrators to illegally hand over those machines. If that happens, it's possible that machines could be tampered with, they could be hacked, the security of our elections could be in jeopardy, and some of those machines may even need to be replaced. So we are working with law enforcement and the Attorney General's office to see a full investigation so that we can see justice and accountability for those who have sought unauthorized illegal access to our election security and our machines. And we intend to see this investigation through to the end to make sure there are clear consequences for anyone who interferes with the integrity of our elections.
All right, Secretary Jocelyn Benson, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.